Hello everybody, I'm Chris Sims from comicsalliance.com, and this is the Comics Alliance Top 5. Around Halloween, we all like to read horror comics to get a few spooks and scares into us. But personally, I really like it when horror-themed characters show up in comics that aren't necessarily built around horror. It always adds a nice element of surprise and scariness to them. So today, we're going to take the spotlight off of horror comics and off of the big two, and talk about some of the scariest bad guys from indie comics. Specifically, indie comics that aren't actually horror books like Hellboy or The Walking Dead. And starting us off at number 5 is the scariest thing that I can imagine: Robot Dracula. Robot Dracula is the bad guy from Tom Scioli's Final Frontier, a comic that imagines what the Fantastic Four might be like if they were actually a rock band. Robot Dracula is loosely inspired by Dr. Doom, and as his name would suggest, he is a Dracula. But he's not a robot. He's actually a cybernetic organism, or cybernorg. Over the course of the story, he does some pretty bad and pretty scary things, but the best for my money, and one of my favorite panels of all time, is how he has a pinball machine in his secret castle that actually controls a giant torture device beneath the floor. It's a pretty great idea, a pretty great touch, and a pretty cool character, so if you haven't read Final Frontier, head over to Tom Scioli's website and do just that. Coming in at number 4, we're sticking with webcomics for one of the most disturbing characters of all time, Cartilage Head. Now, Chris Onstad's Akewood would take too long to explain for this video, so just understand that it's about two cats, one of whom is a rap mogul and the other has depression. Cartilage Head, on the other hand, is impossible to explain. I suppose the best way to describe him would be as a performer? He's known for an act where he snaps his head out of place, but is also mostly known for being a super creepy skull-faced man who's constantly weeping, eternally silent, and who causes very strange things to happen, and is mostly known for telling people that they are cowards who would desert a dying man. Things always get pretty terrible when Cartilage Head shows up. Heading back into print for number 3, we have Sargent States from Paul Grist's Jack Staff, my all-time favorite superhero comic book. Jack Staff is loosely inspired by a lot of Marvel characters, and Sargent States is Grist's stand-in for Captain America. So it's a pretty big twist in the first story when you find out that the secret to Sargent States' immortality isn't the super soldier serum. It's that he's been a vampire since World War II, and is constantly snacking on his sidekicks, or encouraging citizens to donate heavily to blood drives. When Jack returns after 20 years, Sargent States comes back in order to try drinking a superhero's blood for a change and seeing how that works out. The twist is one of the best in comics, and unfortunately, I kinda just spoiled it for you here. But it's also a great story even beyond that, and is well worth checking out. It's genuinely creepy, and, not to spoil anything else, Sargent States isn't the only vampire involved. Coming in at number 2, it's one of the best villains in comic book history, Judge Death. Judge Death is an interdimensional counterpart to Judge Dredd, who comes from a world where the law got so far out of control that they realized all crimes were committed by the living, and therefore life itself must be a crime. As a result, he's responsible, along with the other Dark Judges, for the murder of over 6 billion people in that alternate version of Mega City 1, and millions more once he and the rest of the Dark Judges get loose in Judge Dredd's Mega City 1. Now, the other judges, Judge Fear, Judge Fire, and Judge Mortis, cause a lot of that destruction once they show up in the second Judge Death story, but none of them come close to the creepy appearance and amazing costume design of the original Judge Death. Of course, Judge Death never gets punched in the face by inviting Judge Dredd to gaze into the face of fear, in probably the best panel in Judge Dredd history. Finally, at number 1, we have Jay from Stan Sakai's Usagi Yojimbo. Usagi Yojimbo has been one of the best comics on the stands for over 20 years, and 90% of the time it's a sweeping samurai epic that just happens to star a bunny rabbit. And then, when Jay shows up, the whole thing becomes a horror movie. Jay, also known as the Demon Spearman, the Black Soul, and the Blade of the Gods, is a holy man with white eyes and a fixed grin who wanders around the countryside murdering sinners. Unfortunately, everyone is a sinner, so he tends to kill a lot of people. And what's worse, he seemingly can't be killed. He's been struck by lightning, he's fallen off a cliff, he's run through with a holy sword, and he keeps coming back, until finally, his entire body was destroyed. And then another character turned around with the same white eyes and same sharp grin. It's pretty great. Usagi Yojimbo remains an incredibly thrilling tale, and the fact that it's inspired by so much real Japanese history makes the inclusion of J one of the most fun things about it. And as an added bonus, his name's a pun. I didn't realize it until it was pointed out to me over Twitter, but he's Jason. Or, Jason. That about does it for this week's Comics Alliance Top 5. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have a favorite spooky character from an independent non-horror book, why not leave it in the comments at comicsalliance.com, or hit me up on Twitter at the ISB. Thanks for watching. We'll be back next week with another list. Have a good one, everybody.